Welcome to Willow's World of DIY. I'm Willow. Today I'm going to be installing and reviewing these Bilstein 5160 shocks on this 2007 GMC Sierra Classic 2500 HD. Let's get to it. This is the unboxing of the Bilstein 5160 shocks for 2500 HD trucks. It comes with the shock, external reservoir, spacer blocks, and hose clamps to mount them together. And it comes with a sticker. This is a rear shock, so I'm going to go ahead and install the external reservoir to the body of the shock using the supplied spacers and hose clamps. I really wish that these shocks came with the nice Bilstein aluminum reservoir clamps, but they don't. They come with these kind of cheap hose clamps, but they still work. And this is the second rear shock. I'm going to do the exact same thing that I did on the previous one, and you can see that they have these bands around the shocks. I keep those in place until I install the shock into the vehicle. I jacked up the rear of my truck, and now I'm loosening the lower shock bolts. This is the passenger side rear shock. The rear shocks on these trucks are really easy to replace. It's just 2 bolts, an upper bolt and a lower bolt. Now I'm removing the lower bolt on the rear driver's side. I'm using a ratchet with a socket and an adjustable wrench on this upper bolt, just because there are clearance issues where I can't get another socket in. Now I'm installing the new Bilstein 5160 shock on the rear driver's side. I install the upper shock bolt first, and then I push up on the bottom and install the lower shock bolt. Now I'm removing the passenger side rear shock and installing the new Bilstein 5160 shock. And you can see here that the steel braided line is really close to the exhaust pipe, so I went ahead and flipped it so the steel braided line is on the outside, facing the outside of the vehicle. And I did it like this just so the hot exhaust pipe won't heat up and melt that steel braided line that goes from the shock to the external reservoir. Now I'm tightening the lower mounting bolt. I torqued this bolt to 59 foot-pounds, and I torqued the top mounting bolt to 59 foot-pounds as well. Now I'm tightening the driver's side rear shock bolts, and these are both torqued to 59 foot-pounds as well. Now that the shocks are in place, I can cut the straps that they came with tied around it so it won't fully extend, and remove them. And then I lower the rear of the truck back down. This is the unboxing of the 5160 front shocks for 2500 HD. And they come with the shocks, external reservoirs, the upper mount washers, bushings, and nuts. And they come with frame mounts for the external reservoirs and hose clamps to attach the reservoirs to the frame mounts. Now I'm jacking up the front of the truck, and I'm using jack stands to support it under the frame rails. Then I can remove the driver's side upper shock bolt. I use an adjustable wrench on the top of it to keep it from spinning. Now I'm removing the driver's side front lower shock bolt. And then I remove the shock itself. And now I'm installing the new Bilstein 5160 front shock on the driver's side front. You want to make sure that you put one of the cupped washers and bushings on the bottom, and then a bushing and cupped washer on the top before you install the nut. And now I'm just trying to find a good location for the external reservoir. Once I get it where I want it, then I can put my mount up and I mark it with a punch and then drill it out, and then I tap it. Now I'm installing the external reservoir frame mount to the frame, and this is the driver's side of the truck, and this is towards the front of the vehicle that I'm installing the mount. And I think this is a great place to install it. I have no problems with clearance issues or suspension hitting the external reservoir. Any components, tie rods in, all clears it. Yeah, this is a four-wheel drive truck. So I do have front axles, the CV axles, also that you got to pay attention to the clearance on those as well. This upper nut needs to be torqued to 15 foot-pounds. Now I'm getting the lower shock bolt installed. I just push up on the end of the shock and then I let it come down and slide the bolt in. I torque the lower shock bolts to 59 foot-pounds. And now I'm removing the passenger side front shock bolts. And this process is exactly the same as the driver's side, so I'm going to go ahead and take this time to review these shocks and tell you what I think about them. I've put a little over 5,000 miles on my truck with these new Bilstein 5160 shocks on it. About 70% of the driving that I have done has been on asphalt streets and highways. About 20% off-road when I'm going dirt bike riding or getting out to a location where I want to go dirt bike riding. And about 10% on concrete highways. These shocks are a little bit stiffer than the stock shocks that the truck came with. I think these shocks feel great on asphalt roads and highways. They really soak up the bumps, especially any big bumps, speed bumps, or when you're crossing over a bridge on a highway or something. Those big bumps, they soak them up great. They also work really well with the rear of the truck loaded up and pulling trailers. These shocks perform really well on off-road, over washboards and stuff. The back end of the truck doesn't seem to want to come around on you like they do with the stock suspension or stock shocks, and they soak up the large bumps really nice. Now for the downside, driving on concrete highways, I have a crew cab long bed truck, so anybody that has a truck this long knows how that teeter-totter effect on those concrete highways. I was hoping that these shocks would help that out. They didn't really I couldn't feel much difference from the stock shocks on that. It's still kind of bucking you going on those concrete highways. Luckily for me, I don't usually go on the concrete highways unless I'm going through some sort of mountain pass or something. And that is the only downside that I've noticed on these shocks. And it's not necessarily a downside, I guess. It's equal to, the stock shocks for sure. But I was just hoping it would improve that some. But it just, it's about the same on the concrete highways as far as that goes. And I went with these 5160 shocks over like the 5100s, just because they have this external reservoir on each of the shocks, and that allows more travel for each shock, about 1.5 to 2 inches more travel. And also the cooling, they don't get as hot with that external reservoir. The oil cools off better, so you don't get as high temperatures or any fade. So overall, I'm extremely happy with these shocks on my truck. It rides and handles great. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching Willow's World of DIY. Until next time.